This is Michael Popok, Legal AF After Dark. You can count on it. You can set your watch to it whenever Donald Trump has a bad news week, especially in his lawsuits, criminal and civil. Count on him to time the filing of some distracting motion that has no merit or appeal that has no merit in order to try to grab the news cycle or at least fight it to a push. And Donald Trump is at it again with a late filed motion to join in with those trying to get rid of Fani Willis, the Fulton County DA, because she's having some sort of, I don't know, coffee time with her boyfriend, who also happens to be one of the special prosecutors of Donald Trump. What does it have to do with the indictment that was brought by a grand jury, not Fani Willis, in Georgia against Donald Trump and 15 others? Why should that lead to the dismissal of a prosecutor, either Fani Willis or her boyfriend, if that's what he is? We'll break it all down and explain the special prosecutor rules and the ethics rules and why we think this motion has no merit. One place on Legal AF. Take a listen.
If I want to talk about all this, what I consider to be Magga nonsense in Fulton County, Georgia, where they were attacking Fani Willis, and I said on the last show, I thought that creating any ability for MAGA to attack you in ways that can be avoidable, I think from my own perspective, it's like, why even give them an issue? You know where they're going to go with these things. It's going to create distractions where they can be avoided. If they can be avoided, avoid them. It has nothing to do with the underlying merits of the prosecution. But then why even create the issue, to begin with when I think it's avoidable? So now Donald Trump is joining the motion by Michael Roman, one of his co-defendants in the case, to try to disqualify and dismiss disqualify Fani Willis and get the case dismissed. Popok, I ate up a lot of the New York case while you were having some technical difficulties. So as promised, I'm going to give you this whole topic to break down.
Fresh from Georgia, where I was visiting my mother, so I feel very well prepared for this. So we had reported earlier on Legal AF, and you and I did hot takes on it, that Mike Roman, who, as you touched on, was what I like to refer to as the fake certificate mule, bringing the fake certificates from the 7 battleground states and wending their way through even members of Congress to try to get to Mike Pence and pressure him. He was the election day coordinator for Donald Trump. He's in a load of hurt with Ken Chesbro, a now disgraced and convicted felon, former lawyer for Donald Trump, now testifying around the country against Donald Trump and the fake elector scheme that he helped invent and Mike Roman's role in it. So he's got a lot of problems. And so what they've come up with his lawyer, Ashley Merchant, is to file several weeks ago a motion which tries to drag Fani Willis and the indictment and the prosecution down into the mud and drag it through what looks to be a nasty divorce proceeding involving her special counsel, special prosecutor, Nathan Wade, and his soon-to-be ex-wife, who cheated on him. And I only know that from what I've now learned, unfortunately, from the unsealing of the divorce records. So so people might be thinking, who cares whether he's getting a divorce or not? And the bad look or optics that you and I have talked about, and I did a hot take about this, is that Fani Willis looks like she's going to have to admit that she's in some sort of outside of work relationship or friendship, that Friendship Plus has traveled with Nathan Wade, and they've gone on some, relatively inexpensive cruises together and maybe went to wine country in Napa Valley together. I really don't care. None of that is a ethical dilemma for a prosecutor when you're having a relationship with somebody on that side of the V. It's not like a movie where she's, having a relationship with the defense lawyer and they've compromised the prosecution in some way because they're whispering to each other pillow talk. This is the person that works for her. So as Karen and our colleague said, is it an HR problem? I don't know, maybe. Is it a prosecutor grounds to dismiss the indictment problem? And that's the problem with MAGA. They always go too far. They don't just want to disqualify Fani Willis and Nathan Wade. They want to dismiss the indictment as a result. So it's great because they always hand an easy out to the judge like McAfee, like, okay, let's start from the beginning. I am not dismissing the indictment rendered by, and I think this is what's going to happen in mid-February at the hearing, rendered by a proper grand jury in Georgia on the backs of a special purpose grand jury that lasted for 4 months, that listened to copious amounts of evidence and decided to issue an indictment. And I haven't heard anything. This is where I think he's going to go. I haven't heard anything other than besmirching the reputation of the prosecutor and commenting on her choice of boyfriend that would undermine the validity and sanctity of that process or the resulting indictment. Now, should Nathan Wade at this point continue on the case, or has he been compromised because of this attack on him and by extension, Fani Willis? If somebody's got to go, it should be Nathan Wade for many levels of reasons. And, you know, she can replace Nathan Wade. We and justice can't replace Fulton County District Attorney Fani T. Willis, who was elected by the people to do a job, and by all accounts, including our own, is doing a masterful job in going after Donald Trump. The new argument that Donald Trump's lawyers have raised, as you said, weeks late, joining the Me Too of the Mike Roman filing, which is they don't like the speech that Fani Willis gave to the historic Black church on Martin Luther King Jr. weekend, in which, without naming names, she called out her critics, claimed that she was, and I agree with her, that she was being attacked and her judgment was being attacked for hiring Nathan Wade, for having him work under her or with her on the case, because she's Black and her judgment's being questioned, and he's Black and his judgment's being questioned. And so she raised this kind of racial thing, you know, from literally from the pulpit of a Black church during Martin Luther King weekend. And so that gave Steve Sadow, the lawyer for Donald Trump, along with Jennifer Little, hold that thought on Jennifer Little, because she's embroiled in the Mar-a-Lago case as a witness against Donald Trump. Leave that for a moment, but she did sign the pleadings that were just filed. There is a provision under the normal rules of ethics. There's nothing wrong with dating somebody you work with. In fact, I even posited on my hot take that if anything, based on how little he's charged on this case, given the scope of it, I think he's working harder and for less money because maybe he's having a relationship with Fani Willis. I don't think it runs the other way. I don't think he's slacking or overcharging the taxpayers of Georgia because, you know, he's in a relationship. I think he's working his three-piece suit off on this case. And if he's only charged $700,000, I mean, not to compare and contrast Fani Willis with Jack Smith, but she's got a 30-count indictment against 15 people and has fought off federal appeals about federal removal statute, and has gotten 4 convictions already and 10 or 12 people already state's witnesses flipping on Donald Trump. She's done a great job, and so is he. But there is a provision. Again, this is optics more than anything else that Judge McAfee is going to have to sort through. Georgia Rule Professional Conduct 3.8, Special Responsibilities for a Prosecutor, says in little g that except for statements that are necessary to inform the public of the nature and extent of the prosecutor's action and that serve a legitimate law enforcement purpose, a prosecutor should refrain from making extrajudicial comments, meaning outside the courtroom, that have a substantial likelihood of what? Heightening public condemnation of the accused. That's not what she did. She didn't get up on the bully pulpit or the pulpit of this church and say, and Donald Trump is a racist and I'm going after him and he hates Black people, future jurors of Fulton County, and that's why I'm prosecuting him and he's disgusting. She didn't do that. She defended herself. And he's saying that she is blowing, talk about balls and gaslighting, that Fani Willis, is blowing a racist dog whistle against Donald Trump to whip up prejudice against him by the future, primarily, possibly all black or mostly black Fulton County jury against him, because that's what he's worried about. Now, look, let's put this in context. There's not a person of color prosecutor or attorney general against Donald Trump that Donald Trump has not called a racist, completely misunderstanding and misapprehending what the term racist means. Okay. So Fani Willis, even before this came out, racist. She's black, I'm white, and I'm getting prosecuted because of that. Okay. No evidence of that whatsoever. And she didn't indict Donald Trump. The grand jury did. Alvin Bragg, New York, Manhattan District Attorney, who happens to be black, who got a conviction, 17 count, against Donald Trump's organization for tax fraud a year and a half ago, and now has brought the Stormy Daniels business record fraud case. Racist. I'm white, he's black. I must be prosecuted because I'm white and he's black. Letitia James, New York Attorney General, who we talked about at length during this podcast and throughout the course of Legal AF in the last year. She's black, I'm white. That must be the reason I'm about to lose my business and be banned from the industry. It's always somebody else's problem. And if they're black, God help us, it's because they're racist and he's white, not because of his misconduct as indicted by multiple grand juries. Grand jury Mar-a-Lago indicted him. Grand jury Fulton County indicted him. Grand jury District of Columbia indicted him. Grand jury Manhattan Stormy Daniels indicted him. Right? This is 4 different grand juries that have indicted him in 3 different states. 3 different states. 4 different locations, sorry. It's all because he's white and the prosecutors are black. I mean, MAGA, and I read, and you do a great job of always catching up on all and scrape at all the social media posts from all the wackadoos that are in the MAGA party. I mean, the comments that they make about the justice system and E. Jean Carroll's disgusting and she's a liar. The justice system has gone to hell and, woo, MAGA, MAGA 2024. I mean, I don't even understand what they're talking about. And neither, I don't think, do the independents at the middle of this electorate. He's not making, I'm going to say this and I'll wrap up Georgia. Donald Trump is not making any new voters. Okay. He is animating and activating the MAGA base, who can only vote one at a time and once. Okay. Except when they commit voter fraud. That's them. But has he created any new ones to overcome the electoral advantage of the presiding, the current president and his track record? No, in my view, no. And our moderates and independents more likely to vote for Donald Trump now? No, absolutely not. We just have to, we're buffeting up against this age issue with Joe Biden, which is quickly turning in his favor based on the unhinged performance of Donald Trump. So look, back to Georgia. Do I think that under this rule, she has violated this special prosecutor rule by making statements on the pulpit of the church? No. Do I think Scott McAfee is going to kind of scrunch up his nose a bit about their relationship and maybe suggest that Mr. Wade needs to exit stage left? Maybe. Is he going to dismiss the indictment in the middle of February because of all this, or assign a new special prosecutor or prosecutor? No. Is Governor Kemp, despite getting pressured by the GOP Republicans in Georgia, some of which are the ones that are being investigated and indicted for involvement in the fake elector scandal, is he going to succumb to that pressure and take her out? No. And I think in terms of the trial calendar, though, we're not going to see a Fani T. Willis-led prosecution trial of Donald Trump, before late summer, and it's not going to conclude before the election day when people vote on November 5th. There's only 2 cases that have a shot of doing that. You and I have talked about at length. Jack Smith's case, if it gets up and running by May or June, could conclude based on the speed of federal cases and with a jury verdict prior to November. And I don't think there's anything in the DOJ manual that's going to stop him from trying that case. That in the box Department of Justice rule, that's about starting a criminal investigation. That's not about trying a case about one that's already ongoing. So I don't think that's going to be implicated. And then the one that you and I like, and of course Karen loves from her old office, which is the Stormy Daniels case, which is going to trial on March the 24th, probably by itself, and will conclude within 8 weeks or 9 weeks after that with a jury verdict.
So in terms of just kind of verdict, criminal case, and where we're going with all of this, you have the E. Jean Carroll verdict, $83.3 million against Donald Trump. Next week, we should have the New York Attorney General verdict against Donald Trump in the range of $370 million to $500 million. And then we'll have a criminal case in March. We'll probably reach verdict by, late April? Before May, I think you'll have Donald Trump as a convicted felon. He will continue to be whining about all of this. And at the end of the day, Popok, as you just stated, this is independent grand juries. Grand jury 1 in Fulton County, grand jury in Florida, grand jury in Washington, D.C., grand jury in Manhattan. And then you didn't even mention the actual juries in some of the cases. Like an actual jury convicted the Trump Organization of over a dozen felony accounts last year, and you had Donald Trump's CFO plead guilty for tax fraud, Alan Weisselberg. You had a civil jury who heard the sexual assault allegations against Donald Trump in a federal trial back in May and found that Donald Trump raped E. Jean Carroll and found Donald Trump defamed E. Jean Carroll, sexually assaulted E. Jean Carroll. The judge made it clear it's the same thing as rape in the universal sense of how the word is used. New York just has a technical definition. Another jury heard what Donald Trump did, observed him, and on a Friday issued a verdict in the amount of $83.3 million. So consistently, over and over and over again, in these situations, Popok, where the facts and data matter, juries are coming to the right conclusions, and we here at Legal AF are following that data and following those conclusions. And Popok, you mentioned, independent voters and how they're all observing this. This is why, though, MAGA Republicans are talking about the border over and over and over again. And it's worth mentioning right now, although we've done broader hot takes on it, the Supreme Court ruling that basically overturned what the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeal had done, which was preventing the Biden administration from removing this barbed wire fencing that was leading to the deaths of migrants. It was killing human beings. It was killing people. And there's a way, I think, and President Biden agrees, to be tough on the border while still preserving our values as Americans and not killing people and separating families and torturing individuals. And one of the things where politics meets law at the intersection of Legal AF is this, Senate deal on the border, which is the toughest border deal, bipartisan, Democrats and Republicans. President Biden working with people like Senator Lankford and Murphy and Sinema and people we may or may not disagree with who have come together, Romney, Schumer, all coming together and putting together like the toughest border bill that really addressed everything on a bipartisan basis. And what does Donald Trump do? He orders the Republicans to kill this deal. The whole day. He's been posting to MAGA Mike Johnson and others, kill this deal, do not do the deal. And meanwhile, what's going on in Texas? You have Governor Abbott and all these Republican attorney generals and governors basically trying to trigger like this PR scene where Biden sends the federal government in to remove the barbed wire fences, and then Governor Abbott puts his own forces against the Biden federal forces, and there's this conflict at the border, and they're trying to create these stunts. And in an adult way, President Biden's kind of rising above that and saying, hey, I'm trying to reach a bipartisan deal to actually address this solution. And all you MAGA Republicans are doing is trying to create these stunts and this kind of lawlessness. And by the way, when you have Amy Coney Barrett and Judge Roberts, the two right-wing justices on the Supreme Court, align with the other justices appointed by Democratic administration. So it was a 5-4 decision. And then a Texas governor, MAGA Republican governor, goes, I'm not following the law of this Supreme Court. And in fact, I'm putting my own National Guard, and I'm going to treat my National Guard like it's my own militia and arm them against the federal government. I mean, I think independence. I think most Americans who crave normalcy and are solution-oriented, like I am, I go, hey, look, there's a bipartisan solution. Don't we want a solution? And go, oh, wait, no, Donald Trump doesn't, because he's telling people that he thinks it'll be good for his election if he whines about the lawlessness, And that's what this is all about, just the whining over and over again. So I wanted to mention that Supreme Court ruling in Texas, connected to the Senate border deal, and connected to the broader point you were making there, Michael Popok, about these kind of independent voters. But I'll save the rest of that for the politics show.
Well, there's an example. That's what we do every week, twice a week on the MeidasTouch Network, the 2 million strong Meidas Network, on a podcast we call Legal AF. Title is exactly what you think. You like lawyers who know what they're talking about at the intersection of law and politics and justice? You've come to the right place. Legal AF and its host, Karen Friedman, Nick Nifolo, Ben Meiselas, and me. And when we're not doing the podcast, we're doing hourly, half-hourly updates called Hot Takes on the MeidasTouch Network, talking about these same issues. We pull it all together in a curated podcast Wednesdays, Saturdays at 8 p.m. If you are already part of our audience, thank you. Thank you, really. From the bottom of our podcast, we really appreciate you being here. Take that clip, send it to somebody that's near and dear to you or in your life, and ask him to join us. It's like an appetizer or a teaser. It's a gateway podlet to help them discover our show. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, that was Legal AF. I am Michael Popok, and come join us for our ride as part of your journey and discovery about the intersection of law, politics, and justice. So until my next hot take, until my next Legal AF, this is Michael Popok reporting.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Meidas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.